I still had his fingerprints on my thighs when I stepped into the shower. The water burned hot. Maybe I wanted it to, maybe I needed it to. Like it could scald away the shame. My knees buckled as I slid down the tiled wall, still sticky, between my legs, still echoing with the sounds of what I'd just done. Down the hall, my husband was putting our daughter to sleep, humming her lullaby, the one I used to sing before I stopped recognizing the woman in the mirror. I pressed my hand against my chest, not to feel my heart. I knew it was still there, erratic, guilty, but to stop the sob from crawling out of my throat. My phone buzzed on the sink. One word from him. Again? My fingers twitched. I deleted it. Then I texted back. When? And just like that, I betrayed them both. Again. Sometimes when I close my eyes, I see our kitchen, bathed in soft morning light, the smell of toast and fresh coffee lingering in the air. Emma laughing, milk dripping from her chin. My husband Mark still in his robe, rubbing sleep from his eyes, smiling like we were living inside a postcard. That's the version I used to show people. That's the version I still try to believe existed. But then there's now. The version where I sit in the therapist's office, arms crossed, eyes dry, lying through a half smile. No, everything's fine. I'm just tired. Her pen clicks. I wonder if she knows I'm cheating on my husband with someone who shouldn't even exist in our world. Someone who feels like a fever dream, an infection, someone I still crave like a drug. I wish I could tell you when the cracks started. I used to think it was after Emma was born, when sex turned into a checkbox and Mark stopped looking at me like I was a mystery. But the truth is, it was long before that. It was a slow erosion, a hunger I kept mistaking for exhaustion. There was a moment, 3 years ago, when Mark kissed me goodbye before heading to work. I remember how cold his lips felt. I stared at the closed door after he left, and I cried. I didn't know why. That's the thing, I didn't want to cheat. I wanted to be seen, touched, needed, but I buried that need so deep I forgot it had a voice, until he gave it one. Now, sometimes I'll be driving Emma to preschool, and wonder what would happen if I just didn't go home. If I took a left instead of a right, would they miss me? Or would they be relieved? That thought scares me more than the affair, because it means I've become something else. Someone else. The first time I kissed him, God, it felt like waking up after years of sleepwalking. And now every day I spend in my marriage feels like another betrayal. Not just of Mark, of myself, of the girl who once said forever and meant it. I told the therapist I was ready to unpack everything, but that's a lie too. This isn't unpacking. This is confession. This is bloodletting. This is me cutting myself open to figure out where the poison started. And maybe, if I'm honest enough, I'll finally be able to stop. Or maybe I just want you to know why I didn't. The moment that changed everything was so ordinary, it should have meant nothing. It was a Tuesday afternoon. Rain smeared the windows of the preschool's front office where I volunteered twice a week. Just something to feel useful again, to fill the hollow hours between laundry and dinner time. I was stuffing art projects into plastic folders when I heard someone laugh, deep, unfiltered, confident. I looked up. He was crouching in the hallway, helping a little girl zip her coat. Tall, broad-shouldered, soaked from the rain, his hair dark and dripping at the ends. He glanced over his shoulder and smiled at me. Just a polite, quick flicker of recognition. I nodded back, indifferent on the outside. But inside, it was like something shocked my nervous system awake. He was new. Emma's friend's uncle, apparently, filling in that week for pickup duty. His name was Caleb. The next time I saw him, he asked me if I was a teacher. I laughed, told him no. He said I looked like someone who read a lot of books. Something about the way he said it made me blush, like he wasn't just talking about books, like he wanted to unwrap me. I went home that day and masturbated in the shower, biting down on my hand so Mark wouldn't hear. I felt sick afterward, disgusted, but I couldn't stop thinking about Caleb's voice, his forearms, the way he looked at me like I was a puzzle he wanted to solve. It wasn't supposed to go further than that. But the days became patterns. He'd arrive a few minutes early. I'd linger near the cubbies. We'd talk about nothing, weather, kids, podcasts, music, and yet each conversation vibrated with something unsaid, something magnetic. It was in the pauses, the silences, the way his eyes stayed on my mouth too long when I spoke. I told myself I was imagining it, that it was harmless. But one night, I dreamed about him. In the dream, I was on my knees in the staff bathroom, his hand tangled in my hair. I woke up gasping, soaking through my underwear, pulse pounding like I'd sprinted miles. After that, it got worse. Or better. Or both. I found myself dressing differently on the days I might see him. Lip gloss, black jeans that hugged just right. Lacy bras I hadn't worn in years. I was 34, married, with a toddler and a mortgage, and I felt like a teenager waiting to get noticed. It wasn't just sexual. It was chemical, mental. Like something in my brain recognized his and refused to look away. I started imagining entire conversations with him. What he'd say if I told him I wasn't happy. If I whispered that I dreamed about him. I pictured his hands on my thighs while I stood at the sink washing dishes, while Mark read the news in the next room, oblivious. I tried to shake it. I really did. One night, I deleted his number from my phone. He'd given it to me in case I ever needed a ride after my car battery died. But a week later, I found myself scrolling back through texts, retyping it digit by digit from memory like some kind of addict. I stared at the screen for 20 minutes before finally writing, "Hi, it's me." His reply came 3 seconds later. "I was hoping you'd message." I don't remember how we justified it at first. Something about timing. How maybe in another life. But I didn't want another life. I wanted this one. Ruined and breathless and entirely ours. That was the moment. The click. The opening of a door I would never be able to close again. I started checking the bathroom mirror obsessively for signs of something. Guilt, danger, temptation. I was hoping for remorse, I think. I never found it. What I found instead were red marks on my neck from where I'd imagined his mouth, and a version of myself that scared me because she felt more alive than I'd ever been. I wasn't in love. I was in need. And need is so much more dangerous. I started keeping a journal again. Not the kind with affirmations or daily gratitude. No, this was raw. This was ink-stained sin pressed between the pages of a leather-bound notebook I kept hidden inside an old purse in the back of my closet. I needed somewhere to put the thoughts that didn't belong in my marriage. Somewhere I could speak without shame. March 7th, 11:42 p.m. I saw him today. He brushed my arm by accident. My skin burned for hours. I made dinner with the same hand. He touched. I didn't wash it. What does that say about me? Every night after Mark fell asleep, I would lie beside him, staring at the ceiling. My body was next to his. But my mind was with Caleb, pressed against a wall, whispering into my ear, tracing the outline of my hip with his thumb. I imagined the sound he'd make when I finally let him inside me. I imagined him losing control. And then I started hearing him. At first, I thought it was just memory. Little echoes of past conversations, harmless. But then he started saying things I wanted to hear. Things he'd never actually said. Late at night, when I was alone folding laundry or brushing my teeth, I'd hear his voice in my head. He doesn't see you. You're starving, baby. Let me feed you. You're mine already. You just haven't admitted it yet. Sometimes I'd respond without thinking, whispering I know under my breath like a prayer. The line between real and imagined blurred. One afternoon, I was in the grocery store with Emma, picking apples. I glanced up and saw Caleb by the frozen foods. My heart slammed. He looked at me like he was devouring me, right there in front of the fish sticks. My breath caught in my throat. I blinked, and he was gone. It wasn't him. Just some stranger, in a black jacket. I didn't tell my therapist about the hallucination. I told her I was feeling better. I smiled when she asked about Mark. I said, "We're trying to reconnect." It wasn't a lie. Mark was trying, but he was reaching for a version of me that no longer existed. The sex we had now felt like pity or obligation. He would touch me gently, lovingly, like I was glass. And all I could think about was Caleb's hand curled around my throat. I wanted bruises. I wanted proof that someone still found me feral. One night, Mark made love to me slowly, saying all the right things. I turned my face away and bit my lips so hard I bled, because I was picturing Caleb, because I almost said his name. March 18th, 2:05 a.m. I don't know what I want more, Caleb's mouth between my legs, or for someone to catch me thinking about it. Maybe both. Maybe I want to burn the whole thing down. That's when the fantasies got darker. I started playing out scenes in my head that terrified me. Caleb showing up at my door while Mark was in the shower, me dropping to my knees, choking on guilt and pleasure as the water ran, muffling our sounds. Caleb bending me over the kitchen counter while Emma napped upstairs, leaving fingerprints where no one could see. Sometimes I'd fantasize about telling Mark everything, just laying it all out in brutal honesty, his heartbreak, his rage, the fallout, the freedom. But I never did. I told myself it was to protect him. But the truth? I wanted both lives. I wanted the house and the affair, the dinner table and the danger. I wanted to be the good wife and the ruined woman. I started taking risks, leaving my journal out on the nightstand a little too long before hiding it again, wearing lace under my jeans when I knew I'd see Caleb, even though we hadn't touched yet. I think part of me was begging to be found out. Like I needed someone else to pull the trigger, because I couldn't. The closest we came before the affair was a Tuesday in the preschool parking lot. Emma had forgotten her jacket. Caleb was leaning against his truck, eyes squinting against the sun. I thanked him for picking it up. He handed it to me and our fingers brushed, just a second too long. Then he said, low and careful, "Do you ever think about it?" I froze. About what? He smiled, but it wasn't friendly, it was knowing. Don't lie to me. That night I wrote, March 21st, 1:13 a.m. He knows. I think he's known for weeks. I've lost control, and it feels so good. After that, I started seeing him everywhere, even when he wasn't there. A flash of a coat, a familiar scent on a stranger. I started checking my phone obsessively, needing his texts like oxygen. When he didn't reply for hours, I'd spiral, sweating, pacing, convinced he'd found someone else, someone braver, someone who'd let him take her apart, completely. I started hating Mark for breathing too loudly, for asking me how my day was, for being kind when I didn't deserve it. He would touch my back at dinner and I'd flinch. I knew he noticed, I just didn't care. I spent hours crafting messages to Caleb that I'd never send, begging him, teasing him, daring him. I'm yours. You can ruin me if you want to. Please make me forget who I used to be. I didn't know if I wanted to be saved or destroyed. And the cruelest part was, he gave me neither. He let me dangle on the edge, always just out of reach. Caleb became the voice in my head, the ghost in my home, the itch under my skin. I stopped hearing Emma when she talked. I stopped looking Mark in the eyes. I lived in two realities, the one where I folded laundry and packed lunches, and the one where Caleb had me bent over a desk, telling me how tight I felt. I wasn't falling. In love, I was unraveling, and every thread that came loose spelled his name. It happened on a Friday. Mark had taken Emma to visit his mother for the weekend. I told him I had a migraine and needed to rest. He kissed my forehead and said, "Take care of yourself, babe. Don't worry about anything." I watched them drive away from the living room window. My hand was already trembling before I texted Caleb. Come now. No punctuation, no room for hesitation. I didn't clean the house. I didn't fix my makeup. I stayed in the same thin gray t-shirt and underwear I'd been wearing all morning. My hair was messy. My lips were dry. I wanted him to see the raw version, the one that didn't pretend anymore. He knocked once. By the time I opened the door, he was already pulling me toward him. We didn't speak. His mouth was on my neck, my collarbone, my shoulder. I didn't guide him. He found me like he already knew the map. I clawed at his back, his belt buckle, desperate. The heat between us was chemical, volatile, a match in a room full of gasoline. I gasped as he bent me over the couch, pulling my underwear aside. No undressing, no slow buildup. He slid into me like he owned my body, like he'd always been there. I came within seconds, embarrassingly fast, with my teeth sunk into the cushion, a scream caught in my throat. It wasn't just pleasure, it was release. It was war. It was every suppressed thought unleashed through the arch of my back and the tremble in my thighs. And then, the guilt hit. Mid-thrust. Mid-ecstasy. Mark's face flashed into my mind. His gentle voice. The way he'd looked at me that morning like I was his. I blinked hard, trying to shove it away, but the image stayed. I moaned louder. Like I could. Drown it out with sound. But Caleb wasn't gentle. He didn't ask me if I was okay. He fucked me like he wanted to erase someone else's name from inside me. And I let him. Afterward, he collapsed on top of me, breathless. I stared at the ceiling, my legs trembling. His sweat soaked into my shirt. His hand rested on my stomach, rising and falling with each breath. We didn't speak for a long time. I thought I'd feel disgusted. I thought I'd cry. Instead, I felt hollow, like something had been carved out and left open. When he kissed me again, it was slower. Almost reverent. That was somehow worse. He looked at me and said, "Now you can't go back." He was right. But I tried. The second time was in a cheap motel off the highway. I told Mark I had a volunteer conference. He didn't even ask for details. That made it easier. That made it so much worse. That time, Caleb undressed me slowly. He kissed each inch of skin like it was sacred. When he slid inside me, I looked him in the eyes. I wanted to feel something romantic. I wanted to tell myself this was love, not destruction. But it wasn't. I cried during sex. Not big sobs, just tears sliding down into my hairline while he whispered, "You're mine," over and over again. I was ashamed. Not because I was cheating, but because I wanted to be owned. Later, as I lay curled on the bed, he traced circles on my back and asked, "Does he know you're broken?" I said nothing. He kissed my shoulder. "I do." That should have scared me. Instead, it made me come again. Each encounter chipped something off my soul, and yet I kept going back. I became addicted to the wrongness. I needed it. I needed to feel out of control. I needed Caleb to bruise me, bite me, tear something open, because otherwise I'd be nothing but a well-behaved mother, lying in bed at night next to a man who still called me beautiful, not realizing I hadn't believed that word in years. 1. Night, Caleb asked me if I loved him. I said, "I don't even love myself." He kissed me like that was the right answer. The affair wasn't a story of romance. It was a story of hunger, of wounds licking wounds. It was about watching myself disappear in someone else's mouth and calling that intimacy. I still went. Home after. I still kissed Emma goodnight, still made dinner, still folded Mark's shirts like nothing had happened, but it had, over and over again. And every time Caleb entered me, I left a piece of my sanity on the bed sheets. It unraveled faster than I expected. Caleb had started to change, not gradually, but violently. Like a switch had flipped in his mind, and the man I thought I was seducing had morphed into something else, possessive, paranoid, hungry in all the wrong ways. He texted constantly. Not sexy, teasing messages anymore, but demands. "Why haven't you replied? I saw you at the school drop-off. You didn't look at me. Are you with him right now?" Once I went 3 hours without answering. When I finally checked my phone, there were 19 messages and 2 missed calls. I told myself he was just scared of losing me, that he was in love. That lie worked until the day I came home and found a black hoodie in our laundry basket. It wasn't Mark's. It smelled like Caleb, like that cheap cologne he thought passed for mysterious. That's when I realized he'd been inside the house. I stood in the laundry room with the damp hoodie clutched in my hands, bile rising in my throat. Every creak in the hallway felt like him watching. My vision blurred. For the first time since this all began, I felt genuine fear. I didn't tell Mark. I couldn't. I just stared at him across the dinner table that night, wondering how many secrets could fit between 2 people before something cracked wide open. But Mark had already started noticing. The way I flinched when he touched me, the late-night showers, the silences that stretched too long. One night, I found him sitting on the edge of the bed, holding my journal, the one I thought I'd hidden well enough. It was open to a page scrawled with fantasy, Caleb's name written over and over in the margins. My mouth went dry. He didn't look up, didn't scream, just read aloud, slowly. I want him to ruin me so completely that I forget how it feels to be good. The silence that followed was louder than any slap. I tried to speak. Nothing came out. He stood, holding the journal like it was something rotting in his hands. How long? I opened my mouth. I couldn't lie. I couldn't tell the truth. I just cried. That was worse, I think. The not knowing. The image of his wife reduced to a trembling, wordless stranger. He left that night without packing a bag. Emma asked where he was in the morning, and I said something about work. She nodded, unconvinced, and went back to coloring. I watched her draw a little stick figure family, all 3 of us holding hands, and felt something inside me shatter. I called Caleb in a panic. When he answered, he sounded annoyed, like I was the burden. He knows, I whispered. He found the journal. I think it's over. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Good. Now we can finally be together." I hung up. And that was it. The moment I knew this wasn't passion. It wasn't some grand love affair. It was a slow, deliberate self-immolation. And Caleb had been holding the match the whole time. That night, I sat in the bathroom with the journal in my lap. I didn't read it. I just stared at it, trying to remember the woman who wrote those things. The one who thought lust would save her. The one who believed being wanted was the same thing as being loved. I thought about burning it, but that felt too clean, too final. I wanted to be reminded. I needed to feel the weight of it. So instead, I slid it into the back of the toilet tank, wrapped in plastic, a confession buried inside porcelain. The next morning, Mark came home. He didn't speak, just walked into the bedroom, packed a bag, and left again. No yelling. No questions. That silence. That was the real punishment. I watched from the hallway as he bent to kiss Emma goodbye. She clung to him like she already knew this wasn't just a trip. And I stood there with mascara smeared down my face and nothing left to offer. Caleb texted again that night. "You're free now. Come over." I stared at the screen. My fingers hovered, but I didn't reply. For the first time in weeks, I sat with the emptiness. I let it settle, let it sting. Because somewhere beneath the chaos, beneath the lies and the bruises and the sex, I finally understood. This wasn't about love. It never was. It was about annihilation. And I had finally reached ground zero. The bathroom is quiet now. I sit on the cold tile floor, my back against the tub, knees pulled to my chest. The water's long gone cold, the steam evaporated, but I haven't moved. My skin is still damp, my hair clinging to my neck in limp strands. There's a towel somewhere behind me, but I don't reach for it. I'm not shivering. I'm not crying. I'm just still. Across from me, the mirror is fogged at the edges, but in the center, my reflection stares back, hollow-eyed, lips slightly parted, a woman I recognize but don't quite remember becoming. I look like someone who's been emptied out and left on display. Not grieving, not relieved, just observed. There's a knock on the door downstairs. I don't move. It could be Caleb. It could be Mark. It could be no one. I wonder who I'd want it to be. I wonder what I'd even say. I hear Emma humming softly from her bedroom, the soft creak of her rocking chair as she lulls her stuffed bear to sleep. That sound anchors me more than anything else. She doesn't know who I've become, or maybe she does. Children sense rot before it smells. I glance toward the toilet tank. The journal's still in there, sealed tight, like a heart in a jar, beating quietly behind ceramic, waiting for someone to discover the truth. Or maybe just to confirm it. The knock comes again. Louder this time. Persistent. I close my eyes. I could stand up, dry off, pretend to be a mother again. A wife. A functioning person. Or I could let the water run again and disappear beneath it, just for a little while, long enough to forget what day it is, what I've done. I reach up and turn the faucet. The tub begins to fill, slow and steady. Steam curls up around me, swallowing the edges of the room. The knocking fades. Or maybe I just stop hearing it. The mirror fogs completely. And in that haze, I vanish, not with a scream, not with a sob, but with the quiet exhale of a woman who let desire burn through her, and now has nothing left but ash. Fade to black.